C1. You are listening at FameTV.info. 10,000 scenes, 20.1 years, summer. A century-old drought swept through almost the entire Great Wei province. For 3 months in a row, farmland in the southeast region, especially in Sichuan, was abandoned and there were no crops to be harvested. In addition to the exorbitant taxes and the bullying of officials, many people had been starving throughout the year, and had become food for their children. There were also countless people who had been forced to rebel against the rule of Mount Liang. In the face of the rebel army, Emperor Wei Wu was furious and ordered the great general of the auxiliary nation to lead troops to suppress them. Not long after the heavy rain, the air was still filled with the rejuvenating smell of earth. A Jin put a pot of water on the stove to boil, and then carefully put it into the missing clay bowl, only bringing it to the mouth of the girl on the bed after it had almost cooled down. "Mother, please wake up and drink some water." Su Ji was still confused, her head throbbing. She still vaguely remembered the frightened expression of the passengers when the plane crash had happened, as well as the air stewardess who had forcefully tried to calm them down. My head hurts. "Mother, wake up." Someone was nudging her, sounding anxious, one moment reaching out to touch her forehead, the next moment trying to give her water. After Su Ji slowly adapted, she struggled to open her heavy eyelids. What entered her eyes was a boy around 5 years old. He was looking at Su Ji with a worried expression. His clear black and white eyes still had some fog left in them, and they were slightly red and swollen. There were still crystal tears on his long eyelashes, which made people's hearts ache. "Little Shota. Which family's child?" "Mom, you're finally awake." Seeing Su Ji open her eyes and look at him, the little boy squinted his eyes in joy, like 2 bright crescent moons. "Little Do Bao, quickly come over. Mom is awake." Accompanied by a burst of babbling, another small head popped out from the bedside. Su Ji looked carefully and saw that it was a cute little girl. The child was about 2 or 3 years old. Although he was adorable, his clothes were tattered and he didn't even have a decent piece of clothing. Su Ji rubbed her temples that ached and looked around. She saw herself lying on a wooden bed made of straw. In addition to the shabby square wooden table, there was only a dark wooden cabinet and 2 broken cans used to receive the rain. It was unknown when the crooked windows were hung up. This was what happened to the 4 walls of a household. After Su Ji regained her senses, she subconsciously raised her hands. These hands were not hers. She had been pampered ever since she was little. She would never have a pair of shriveled hands like these. This body was also not hers. Thinking back to the plane crash, she sighed and accepted the fact that she had crossed over. It looked like he was out of luck. He had caught up with the big trend, but he didn't manage to get into a good family. Everyone else belonged to the princess and his wife. Su Ji facepalmed, glancing at the 2 little fellows who were staring at her anxiously before their bed. That line, "I'm not your mother, and I've been forced back." She didn't have experience as a mother. Before the plane crash, she was still on her way to England to be an exchange student. When she opened her eyes again, she had already become their mother. "Mom, does your wound still hurt?" A Jean looked at the bruise on her forehead, her eyes revealing pain and worry. Hoo, it won't hurt." The 2-year-old little girl propped up her feet and seriously blew on her wound. Su Ji's face was covered in blood as she consoled, "Mother is fine, just knocked into her head. There are so many things that I can't remember. For example, why was there only the 3 of them in the family, and where was the child's father? Seeing how dilapidated this house was, it couldn't be an unlucky widow, right?" A Jean sensibly handed her a bowl of water and took out half a sweet potato, which was not even the size of his fist. "Mom, I'll give it to you to eat." Before she could take the other half of the sweet potato, a Jin's stomach let out a long, goo-goo sound. He embarrassedly touched his belly as his cheeks flushed. Su Ji smiled and pushed back his hand that was holding the sweet potato. "Eat it yourself. A Jin is not hungry, feed her mother." Su Ji looked at the 2 skinny and obviously malnourished little bun and felt a little heartache. She got out of bed and prepared to cook. When the rice jar was opened, there was only a thick layer of dust inside. not a single grain of rice. It was a difficult task for a woman to make a meal. She wandered around for a while, but other than the half of the sweet potato the boy had just given her, she could not find any other food that could be cooked. "Jean, where's your dad?" Suji rubbed her head, feeling a little disheartened. This family was broke through to the bottom of the earth, and could not even keep up their worries. Without a man to manage their livelihood, it would be impossible for them to pull 2 children by relying on a weak woman. Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.